Hello, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening. I hope you're listening to this at night. You're supposed to. If you haven't been listening to this at night every time, we're kind of upset.
Yeah, that's not how the canon is supposed to work, okay?
This is Style and Direction, a nighttime podcast to help you fall asleep. That's the name of the podcast.
I think I've said it maybe on stream, but I know like at least two of my friends say, I don't care about the subject matter, but I do listen to you guys when I fall asleep. And I'm like,
yeah.
I appreciate the support.
If you didn't... Listening to like random like hobby podcasts is a good way to fall asleep. So, you know, maybe we could like cultivate, like if the menswear thing doesn't work out, we can still talk about menswear, but we just market ourselves as a sleep podcast.
Well, is this one of those things where we have to do it our ASMR podcast?
We should do an all AS. I think a bonus episode that was all ASMR. The people would want that. People want us to tickle their heads or whatever.
Tickle your heads.
Yeah, that's what ASMR does. It's head ticklers.
We can push like little like these are flannel trousers and just put them across the microphone.
Yeah, what is ASMR menswear ASMR would be like taking a brush and like I mean you could do like shoe polishing, like polishing or
yeah you could do the crunch of a silk knit tie or something, you know.
Yeah,
that's something. Untying a tie. I don't know if
there
that makes. I guess that makes sound. I don't know if like fastening a button makes a sound. I don't know if that's a thing.
This is do you know the John Mulaney and the Sack Lunch Bunch, like the song with Jake Gyllenhaal, where he's singing about how everything makes music, but then he does a bunch of things that doesn't actually make sounds.
No, I don't remember that.
That's like it's a big finale. That's what we'd be doing.
I gotta
Jake Gyllenhaal.
I gotta rewatch that. I've been like on a I think you should leave kick again just because it's around that time, you know.
I think I saw that they're starting to film, or they're like in the middle of filming season 2. I think someone who's in the cast like posted a photo from the set. So ITYSL season 2, it's coming.
Yeah, and you guys should know that we love our comedy.
We love comedy. We love to laugh. Ha ha!
It sounds like more like you're proving something, or you're like you're exposed.
Well, I'm proving. I've been exposed as a comedy lover.
Expose yourself.
Yeah, exposed myself as a comedy lover.
I actually started watching Portlandia for the first time in full because I think I watched it in college, but like in the background. But I never sat down and watched it. And I did watch the episode where it's like the alt band like festival, and
the fest, like the gentle bands, battle of the gentle bands or something like that.
And there's like a girl who keeps trying to go to like I'm on the list, and they go, you're not on the list, and she goes to like, each venue, and then she ends up going to. He goes, oh yeah, there's a place called Alaska, you'll check it out, and then she goes to Alaska. It's really funny. First time I'm watching it, it's definitely like a very 2011 type of humor.
Yeah.
You know, it's very early, very.
Yeah, I haven't watched it again, but I mean I love that show in high school, and I still watch like some clips on YouTube. I like all the stuff with Kumail is pretty good. He always does like he's like shows up regularly, and he always does this like weird. He's this weird like bureaucratic like waiter or like retail guy.
Yeah,
who's like, before you purchase this, you have to do all this, and it's always a fun bit.
Do you want the Data Plus plan, or do you want the Data Unlimited plan? Let's see. The Data Plus plan has texting on weekends. It was funny because my mom, and we'll get to the topic in a second. Thank you guys. But
thank you for keeping us on track. All the people that are yelling at us from outside our studio. Have we joked about this? How we want to get. Like, you know how on like the Today Show or whatever, you see all the people behind the glass with signs. Yeah, we want that.
Yeah, it's like sad, just like in big old, in big old letters on like a little cardboard thing. But my mom said she did realize that for I think you should leave. Hey, this guy just like takes a situation and makes it like he's usually stubborn and just expands on it. Like, yes, you get it.
That's it.
That's it. And then I think she's trying to get like my type of humor because she likes Arrested Development, but I mean, it's there's more.
Arrested Development. I mean, it's still like it's more straightforward, I guess, than I think you should leave, and it relies less on like cringe humor, which I think you should leave is a lot of that.
Yeah, but it's not like Eric Andre cringe. It's like kind of like it's a lot more of like regular situation, but like just a little bit expanded. Yeah, exactly. This is okay. If we ever do like a live show and you think Spencer and I interact with you, just know that we're always doing a bit, so don't feel weird that we're like laughing to ourselves about something.
Yeah, we're always doing bits.
I feel like I think I've met a couple people and I do like a joke and they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "No, never mind."
Yeah, it's like it's even tougher when you start like texting someone and like you're like texting like a new friend or acquaintance or whatever, because that it's even harder to convey dry humor over text. Like someone shared like something with me that was about like a bunch of worms, prehistoric worms being woken up from an ice coma after 3,500 years or something crazy like that. And I just said it's like,
that's not prehistoric. First of all, 3,500 years.
Okay, whatever. Like longer than that. But someone they brought back these worms to life that had been frozen, and I said it's like, imagine being a PhD and your job is to wake up worms, and they thought I was being serious and like didn't get why it was cool.
Okay, yeah, maybe it's not us, maybe it's the others. Okay, maybe they're not funny. Okay. Well, speaking of not funny, let's talk about the funniest shirt of all time. Well, or the funnest shirt. More like it.
That's right. It is the funniest. The shirt preferred by clowns.
We're going to be talking about the Oxford cloth button-down and, by extension, just button-down collar shirts in general. And
yeah, some people get pedantic about this, and I love to be pedantic sometimes, but on this one, shut up. Yeah.
Podiatric?
Podiatric. But yeah, so we're going to be talking about just shirts with button-down collars. So if we use the term denim OCBD or chambray or cotton, whatever, we know it's not technically an OCBD. We know what OCBD stands for.
And
it's just easier to say that.
I think the reason why also is that for the sake of cross-referencing and archiving my outfits, I just put denim OCBD in my tags. Yeah. So because I'm not gonna type out, but I mean, if you guys are in about archiving your files, once you start adding like, oh, navy jacket, button down collar, it starts to get too long. You gotta short. OCBD is fine, and more often than not, sometimes it is an actual OCBD, but sometimes you got a denim one. It doesn't fucking matter,
Yeah, it's like cut the same.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the cloth that's different. I get you can maybe it should be different. I don't know. Fuck that, dude.
We're not gonna say DCBD or CCBD, whatever.
Or CCP. Wait, is that
or CCP?
Yeah, not just two of them. But anyway, this is Style and Direction, a menswear podcast without the stuffiness. I am your host, Ethan M. Wong,
and I'm your host, Spencer Adi.
That's right. So let's get into it here. So obviously the shirt's been around for a fucking long time. Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of guys use it today. It's kind of got this weird thing of like it's like the old man collar for some reason. Like it's simultaneously.
Well, I think today it's interesting because it's like it's still like a very menswear thing, but it's also so like mainstream. Like, and the difference is obviously just going to be like the collar shape and everything.
And the size and the length. Yeah.
Yeah, like, like for a lot of people, OCBDs are probably like a very like, J. Crew, Banana Republic Vineyard Vines.
Untuck it, yeah, kind of
exactly, kind of thing where it's like, oh, this is what I wear to the office with my like slim fit chinos and my like tan shoes,
Yeah.
But then of course to like the menswear guys, it has a very different. I mean, it's still kind of similar. It's still like the everyman menswear shirt, but it has a slightly different connotation.
Yeah. So quick thing on it, right? It's like, for a while, men had starched detachable collar shirts, and then you started getting soft collar shirts like the late 1800s. I mean, they had them, but it probably didn't catch on to like the 1910s or something like that.
Yeah, I guess brief history. Attached collar shirts were the norm. Then in the like early or mid 19th century, someone invented detachable collar shirts, and then they were the norm for like the next 100 years.
And then it switched back again.
Yeah.
And so, when you look at some of these images from that I've included in the show notes, or technically it's an essay because that's just how it is. But you do see it. It was like a sports shirt back in the day, right? Like, you had like your wing collar shirts, your spread collar shirts, stiff or not.
I mean, it literally was a sports shirt.
Yeah. You wore it to play like cricket, I think is the commonly begin. That's what like people. say, like the really niche menswear historians say, it's actually not polo or tennis, it's cricket. And you see images and illustrations of cricket players with like really wild, like they're really fat, kind of, there's not a lot of roll to it because some of them didn't wear ties when playing. But yeah, you see that a lot. Mark Twain has one, which is crazy. Like, and it looks like he has it unbuttoned, and it looks like a fucking regular shirt. And in my head, Mark Twain is like some old guy wearing like a white suit with like a string tie or something, like Colonel Sanders.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm getting them both confused. Colonel Sanders and
I don't
Mark
think
Twain.
I don't think that. Does Mark Twain wear a string tie? What I always think is funny is like I don't think he started wearing like the white suits until like the last like 10 years before he died.
Yeah.
So he had his whole life to dress, but then we only remember from him from when he was an old man.
Yeah, I wonder what do you think we were gonna be like that? What if when we die, we're gonna be remembered for like the last thing we wore? Bespoke shoes.
Literally the last thing we wore. Yeah, there you go. There goes Spencer. He always wore bespoke shoes.
I mean, it's kind of a flex when you die, then, right? Like, that's
yeah, exactly.
But
it does suck if you get bespoke shoes because I think most of the time they bury people barefoot, so you're not gonna be able to wear them.
I'm gonna put it in my will.
Okay, there you go.
I don't know if that's how wills work. Does it tell you exactly how you are dressed when you die?
I think you probably could dictate that.
I mean, also, it's like, what if your family says never mind, and then they take them, right? Like, you won't know. You won't know.
Yeah, it's like, no, fuck this guy. I wanted these shoes.
So yeah, like the old shirts, they were Oxford, and sometimes they were even like cotton flannel or cotton wool flannel, stuff like that. Because they were sport shirts, and the story goes, right, that John Brooks was like in England seeing polo players or cricket players or whoever had it at that time had these button-down collars. He's like, I'm gonna fucking steal that because I'm an American man, and then he like popularized it like the early like the 1900s or whatever, and then at some point, like you see the tennis players wearing them, like I think there's even button-down collar polos, I think, at some point, or half placket shirts back in the early days.
Most OCBDs were like half placket up until like the 40s, like 40s or 50s, I think.
Yeah, sometimes they didn't even have a breast pocket too, right?
Yeah, like the standard like Oxford Brooks shirt for the first like 30 years of its history was like half placket, no pocket.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and some of them, like I've seen some of the pictures. I think I've included it. Like the roll is so inconsistent too. Like sometimes it looks so like flat down, like triangle, like a point collar, and sometimes you see it, with like a little bit of a roll there. So it's one of those things where.
And I think it was like that for like all of its history, because I remember in Ame Torah there's a section. I think it's Ame Torah, and they're talking about like the 40s or 50s. But they're talking about like the differences in collar styles in America, and they talk about it's like, oh yeah, there were some collars that had to be like packaged a special way because the collars rolled so much and were so tall even with lying flat, and then there were some that were like very short, like the J. Crew collars we have today. So there was always a big variety.
Yeah, in the 1930s, there's a couple of Esquire images that I included. That's like the collar looks so small, it's crazy. And it's really funny. I mean, maybe we're a little bit of hypocrites because we both like, long collars and everything, but saying like accuracy isn't always the case because there's so much variation. Like as I've seen, like after we talked about the spear point collar one, there is still also variations in how much curve, how much spread, how tall the collar is. So it's really quite wild. But anyway, speaking of the 30s, so at that point, it became kind of like an alternative to the spear point. Like you see a lot of images, a lot of illustrations, Lawrence Fellows, all those guys in the apparel arts wearing button-down collars. And you would think, oh, well, it's a casual sports shirt. Like, no, these guys wore it with suits. They wore it with like double-breasted jackets.
Yeah. I think like the only difference was like in these illustrations, these people usually weren't like at work. Like they weren't drawn at work, so it seems like it might have been a thing to do like out of the office.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess at that point you could call it casual, but of course today, where casual means not a suit, you could probably make
Hmm.
that connotation there. But yeah, like these guys wore like I distinctly remember seeing it with like white trousers, like suede bucks DB jacket. I've seen it with like tweed stuff and like pinstripe suits even,
Hmm.
and we'll probably get into this in the future article about the apparel arts golden era, but like the hashtag menswear back then was like called the Esquire man, and the way when you read these illustrations, like the copy for it, it's like, yeah, the Esquire man prefers this thing, and it's like that. And
Hmm.
so you saw all of like, yeah, like the real Esquire men would wear like a button down collar with like a DB suit. That's why you saw like Fred Astaire, who is often touted as being very like a classic dresser. He was very on trend for like
Oh
almost
yeah.
every era of like in the
Yeah,
30s, 40s,
he
50s.
was like yeah, he was like very trendy. Like he did like but he wore like OCBDs with collar pins.
Yeah, yeah,
Um I mean this is unrelated, but he did like a necktie as a belt, which is still a pretty baller move.
yeah, yeah. He did. It was a lot of that stuff. And you can also see like in those different pictures like the different roles that he has. There's like some that's like
Hmm.
super spread and everything. Yeah, Cary Grant wore some. It was it was one of those things where when you look back through history, it's actually a lot more nuanced in how you wore it than like today, or how like hardcore Ivy
Yeah.
guys would
Because yeah,
think of
now
the
I'm
OCBD
sure like
or
most
button collar.
people. I mean, it's like I'm not going to fault anyone for not knowing the complete history of the OCBD, but I think if you ask most menswear guys, they would say, "Oh yeah, it started by Brooks Brothers and was popular with college students," and that would be like
Yeah.
about it.
Well, that's
But yeah, it's a very deep history.
Yeah,
There's a
but the
lot more
thing
to
is,
it.
right? There is truth that it's a collegiate thing because it is represented a lot
Oh
in
yeah,
the
you
college
still. I mean, yeah.
illustrations.
Don't get me wrong. There's still so many illustrations that's like, here's the young man at college, and he's wearing
Joe
like an
College.
OCBD.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I saw one where it's like, here's Joseph College. And I'm like, that's kind of a fun way to say that. But yeah, they do say like,
Yeah.
and they're wearing like, yeah, tweed jackets, blazers, tattersall, like knitwear and everything like that. And I was talking to a vintage menswear, an amateur historian guy that you probably know, Mark. And he did say that only like really hardcore like university guys who were Esquire men wore it, and then when they got older, it kind of became okay. Then they became like the professors, they became the writers, the artists,
Okay.
and it became a
That
part of
makes
their
sense.
look. And then of course,
Yeah.
people are like, okay, I want to look like that guy now. So then it kind of goes in that realm where like yeah, by like the 50s or actually maybe like late 40s, like college students started to wear more OCBDs, and then of course, 50s, 60s, boom, like that was like the look for like the heyday Ivy style, you know. And again, if you look at those stuff, even like there's still so much variation with it. You look at Berkeley Breeze's Instagram, like there's a lot of variation in the button down collars there. You see it in a bunch of different fabrics. We'll get into that more,
Yeah.
but like it wasn't just Oxford. Like I've like touched like broadcloth and poplin like vintage.
Oh
button-down
yeah, and
collar
there's
shirts.
like chambray OCBDs or denim. More commonly chambray OCBDs were pretty popular in the 30s,
Yeah.
at least from like photographs and illustrations that we've seen.
Yeah, dark cloth, or dark Oxford ones were pretty popular as like a 30s style move. So we've talked about like the light suit and like dark shirt, light tie kind of a thing that we've
Yeah.
referenced. There's like some work shirts had that too. Like I have like a 50s like wool, like a worsted wool, like red work shirt with like
Yeah.
the twin breast collar, and it's a button down collar and it rolls. I don't know if I could put a tie because it's kind of a weird shirt to wear with a tie. It's like a vibrant
I don't
fire
like wearing
truck red.
and I don't like wearing wool shirts buttoned up all the way. That's too
Yeah.
scratchy.
Yeah, I know, can't do that. Itchy.
Yeah.
It's scratchy
Itchy
show.
and scratchy.
Yeah. But yeah, you definitely had this. You had like those like really fun like psychedelic like the batik shirts and the paisley shirts, because at like the 50s and 60s it really became the everyman shirt. Like if the spear point collar turned into the point collar, the OCBD kind of stayed neutral. It kind of became like, okay, well, I'm not wearing a business shirt. I'm not wearing the point collar shirt. I'm going to be wearing this OCBD that looks good unbuttoned and with a tie. Because
And it makes it's like it's a good casual shirt for that era because we like all our shirts online, but a lot of shirts in the 40s and 50s were like had like inner lining or were starch and stuff like that. So OCBDs back then were still typically like 100% unlined everywhere.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
obviously
Super soft.
they get very soft and comfortable when they break in.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, because it's also like it's not a sport collar. It's not the loop collar shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, and again, loop collar shirts like the Hawaiian or the camp collar shirts you guys know, and they lay flat. And so, if you need something that stands up, which is typically what we would consider to be dressier, you would wear an OCBD or a button-down collar shirt. And at some point, obviously as time really went on, maybe it's because, and I wrote about this, maybe it's because of how standard it became. Like by like the 70s and 80s, it's like the old man or like the conservative shirt, because then that's when like trad became like a symbol of like old money kind of a thing. Because if trad was like the cool thing to wear in the 60s, it became a little old in the 70s and 80s as like you start getting more designer
Because
stuff.
it was like a deliberate throwback.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what kind of, even though a lot of menswear guys like the mid-century look, I think the 70s and 80s is what people kind of remember more. Like those old like 80s catalogs, like the kind of like vibrant
or like 70s Ivy I feel like has had a huge inspiration, especially just like wider lapels, like slightly longer collars, wider ties, stuff like that.
Yeah, kind of a bolder foulard pattern, a bolder stripe with like, you get like the awning stripe stuff. That's also when I don't know when the fun shirt became a thing. It's got to be like late 60s or 70s, right? I think that's not too early.
Fun shirts and things like go to hell pants or critter pants, those always like strike me as very like 70s. Like those are like
at the very least
like
early 60s. Yeah. It's
exactly.
I was like, I think, and that's what people typically kind of, at least today, kind of remember. And you do get like the beefier OCBD collar that you like nowadays. That's more of like a 70s, 80s thing. And of course, wooden sleepers, all these guys who collect and sell vintage Brooks are typically from the 70s, 80s, and maybe early 90s. That's like the sweet spot for Brooks. Yeah. Also, that's probably when they were still made in the United States. I think the factory, the closed in like 2000 something, but I mean, that heyday.
I imagine that if there were more 60s Brooks OCBDs out there, we would see more of like people selling them. I think it's just like 70s is, there's still a lot of 70s dead stock Brooks shirts, but
I mean, that's when their business super took off, right? It was like the first time they started expanding, right? I mean, also check out our stream on Brooks, where all just gives us a very detailed history of Brooks Brothers. It's really, really fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then it kind of it became like the kind of old man stuff. And in the 2000s, right? Like you look at all like the cool dressers of the time, like Armani, like they're not wearing button-down collar shirts. They're wearing point collars. You look at Friends or Frasier, they're wearing point collar shirts. That's not like, I think the only person I can think of is like Jerry Seinfeld, like the denim one or whatever, tucked in the jeans or something. But like that's like a casual look, right? Jerry Seinfeld, with the Nike sneakers. But yeah, and then someone decided to slim it up, make a short length, and it came back, shorter collar and everything. No roll at all.
Prep revival, mid late 2000s really really brought it back.
Yeah, that's right. And then you also get with the hashtag menswear and just guys wearing it to like the mall and becoming like the J. Crew secret wash shirt, like those styles that became kind of a thing. But it's always been around for like menswear guys. I think I write that it kind of, since the Spearport collar is like gone, and this is before the revival of the camp collar shirt in like 2015, the OCBD was always like the classic shirt. It was like the one that you would wear to kind of as like a throwback. Like you don't want like the fused spread collar shirt. You want something soft, you want something a little bit of a throwback. You want to do Ivy style as a look, because hashtag menswear, even though it's like a classic thing, you still want to do some looks. You still want to look Italian. You still want to do whatever you do. Where you wear the OCBD, and then now it's like fully back because people are really getting into like rugged Ivy now. You see that a lot. You got all these guys on Instagram, like our friends at like a Cute Style and Newton Street Vintage. These guys kind of, and again, Wooden Sleepers kind of bringing back the kind of, the old OCBD, and you wear that with everything, right? You wear that with like fucking shorts and jeans and chinos and everything to it. So yeah, it's cool and we like it because
we like the shirt.
Yeah. So when did you first get into it? Because I know that you always kind of liked Ivy before I did.
Yeah. So I mean, my first I first got started buying OCBDs like really early. but they weren't like good ones. They were like from Target. But as you said, this was like kind of, I was into like 60s style, 50s, 60s style, and in like when I in high school. And so that was, as we said, one of the few like 50s, 60s styles that you could buy at like Target or whatever. And so I started wearing those in like high school. I had like a white OCBD that I would wear all the time.
Yeah. You did.
As I've said before, my first order from Luxshire Shirts was a white French cuff spear point Oxford shirt. So I would wear that Oxford shirt a lot. But yeah, I mean, I started getting more into like real Ivy style. I don't know, like senior year, maybe freshman year of high school or of college. I mean, and I think my first like OCBD purchases. Well, I probably I got like another one on. I got another like a better white one on eBay, or kind of like off-white, like cream.
Off-white, George.
But that off-white, yeah, it was an off-white printed off-white X Brooks Brothers collab. But then I think my first like real good OCBDs were we found like randomly in a vintage store, like just in a basket in a vintage store in Orange.
Yeah,
and they were
problematic store.
Like,
no.
Yeah. But anyway, they were he had like this guy had a basket of like 70s and 80s Brooks shirts. None of them were dead stock, but they were still from the 70s and 80s. So I got a 70s Brooks Makers blue Oxford, and then a 70s Brooks Gate, which is like a poly blend. They're a cheaper line, but I don't mind. Red University stripe, which I still wear both of those pretty often. And since then, I mean, I don't have like a huge... Well, yeah, since then I've gotten like Kamakura. I have 3 shirts from Kamakura, which I love. I have 2 Drake's Oxfords. And then like 1 or 2 other vintage Brooks since then. My favorite is the 60s or 70s yellow Brooks shirt that I got from Doug. That one's really versatile. Yeah.
We'll talk about that, yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, Spencer was kind of the person. I mean, like we said earlier in the podcast, the episode, like we were walking in like a J Crew, and he goes, "Oh yeah, look at that!" Like, I don't know if it was 3-roll too, but the blue corduroy suit, like Spencer's always been like kind of introduced me to Ivy early on. But of course, like most guys who had a Tumblr and was like, "Oh man," not even hashtag men's. I'm just talking like, you know what I'm talking about, like the fun OCBD. That sounds like weird. It's like I can think of it's like a dark blue cotton poplin button down collar shirt, untuck it with like small flags like all over it.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, and you wear that with like your jeans like cuffed with like a boot or something.
Yeah.
One of my favorite shirts that the ladies really loved was really Oxford cloth shirt. I had no idea at the time. I just knew it was like a heavier fabric, and it was like a tan shirt with wood, like quote wooden buttons, whatever. And then it had fish on it, and it was really cool. Got it from like Urban Outfitters or something. Yeah, like that kind of a look.
I can't deal with those summer shirts. We sold so many of them at J Crew. Like every summer, it'd be a short sleeve button down collar shirt with a bunch of like fish on it or whatever. I'm like, this is just worn by like fucking like 20-year-olds and then 60-year-olds, and that's it.
Yeah. It's one of those guys who likes craft beer and
yeah.
Oh man, we're haters. But I think obviously I got clued into this Ivy League look, as we said in like some earlier episodes, or even on the stream, where I was like, okay, I want to be vintage, I want to be more contemporary. How do I do that? There's Ivy, right? We saw Dick Carroll doing it. We saw a couple of guys. Of course, I got getting some more inspiration, not from Lawrence Fellows illustrations, but more like film photography of people. That's usually a very 60s kind of a thing, documentarian style. But I think the first one I have that I didn't write about, so the podcast is a place to hear it, is like the Uniqlo ones, and those were pretty good. If you got like not like the untuck it ones, but like the dress version, they typically had a longer collar and they rolled, but they were non-iron. So then that's one of the first times I figured out, okay, fused or non-iron stuff sucks. And I didn't realize it at the time or before that, because when I had my spear points, even though I knew I liked the softer collar, Fuse still was fine because it evoked like those Sanfordized spear point collar shirts that you would see. But I never thought about how the OCBD, like how the roll was so important to it, and it typically is better if you get it soft, you know.
Yeah.
And so then after
I just don't get the appeal of an OCBD or any kind of button down collar shirt with like inner lining or a stiff collar.
Yeah, it's weird.
Don't get it.
Yeah. So yeah, that was pretty early for me. Like immediately after that Uniqlo one, I never bought like a non-iron shirt like ever again. This is like 2014, early 2015. And then I started to, like with Spencer, we would look look through the racks because obviously it's hard to find 30 shirts, and we were pretty used to at this point buying it from our like Natty shirts or whatever. So and the thing you could find were OCBDs, and it's kind of fun to find, okay, oh, this is a good one. Oh, shit, it's non-iron. Or, oh, shit, it's poly blend or whatever, and we don't like that.
Yeah.
Or typically, like the early ones from like Brooks, after like 60 years of wear or 50 years, it's like softer compared to like an LL Bean poly blend from like the 90s. It doesn't feel as great.
I also, you did try to get Natty to make you some 1930s style OCBDs. Like you talked to Mark Chevalier, who we mentioned before is like
amateur historian.
He's like an amateur menswear historian. Not saying amateur is, and he's very knowledgeable.
Yeah, it's not his full-time job. Yeah, that's not it.
Yeah, but you talked to him and got like, okay, this is what a 30s Brooks shirt, like this is how far away the buttons were. This is like, you got all the details, and how did they turn out?
Well, okay, so the first thing is I don't even know if they listen to me because like I don't have I've never tried their button down collar beforehand. I don't know if they there's nothing to compare it to. And this website, as we talked to, Natty Shirts, is a really shitty website. It doesn't really show you like the options, because it's like a graphic or something. But it looked pretty good. I think I included some pictures in there. It rolls pretty well. It doesn't. I mean, it's one of those things, and we'll talk about it in a second, where like my preferences for a collar are different. Like I think again though that early one, it's fatter. There's not like a spear point-ish curve to it that you see in some of them that I've included. But based on that, it was good. Really beefy. The fabric, I think I got some really heavy Oxford. I just didn't wear it enough for it to break in, and the collar shrank like crazy. Because maybe it's like it wasn't a pre-shrunk fabric, and I asked for it unlined, obviously, so it shrinks up. Because because fusing that's kind of why. Okay, that's the answer. Fusing sometimes can prevent it from shrinking. I think that's the case. I say that because I just know that these collars shrink in the neck. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the basis of that hypothesis. But yeah, I think Jay has it because Jay has a smaller neck size than mine, or maybe I just donated them to like Goodwill or something. But yeah, they were my first ones there, and I haven't tried to recreate it ever since because, as I wrote in the article, if I'm gonna spend money, I'm gonna get a fucking spear point collar because that's something you can't get anywhere else. That's something I get at Ascot Chang now, and they've gotten it right. And OCBDs, because they're like the everyman thing, I feel like it's kind of cool to like thrift them or find it on eBay for like between $30 to $60 depending on the like condition of it or whatever.
And we kind of got into this I think in the custom menswear episode, but OCBDs you kind of want to fit like wide and roomy, and honestly then there's not really much point in getting them made to measure unless you're just like have a really fat neck and really short arms.
Yeah, I mean it's also like you gotta really want like that particular collar, and we'll get into that in a second. But yeah, I have Kamakura. I tried two of them. I had the Kamakura button down collar, which wasn't a non-iron, but it was a fused collar. MJ has that now. That I got when I was in Japan. I got the sport version, not the vintage Ivy one, because those are like the ready-to-wear alpha size untuck it style shirts that have a smaller collar, and they don't really roll, like they don't work with a tie, and I'll get into that in a second. But then I got like the sport version, which is probably like their best one. And I love it. It's my only OCBD with a university stripe, or actually it's my only shirt in general that has a university stripe. It's not my only blue stripe, but it's my only university stripe shirt, and I really like that. But the rest of mine are all like vintage, like Brooks Makers stuff, early 2000s Brooks, or like still I don't know if they're made in America. I think some are made in like Malaysia, but they are definitely all cotton, not non-iron, and they're not all
Yeah.
Oxford. Some of them are poplin, some of them are end on end. I don't mind it. I think that's one reason why we called it at the beginning of the episode, like, it doesn't have to be Oxford cloth, because sometimes you just find it. Sometimes you buy stuff just because the pattern is cool. Like we're not gonna say, oh, the Madras button-down collar, it's not Oxford. Like, no, that doesn't matter. You want the Madras shirt too, right? You
Yeah,
know.
you want a plaid Oxford, even though
Yeah.
it's not Oxford.
Yeah, I don't even know if they make plaid Oxford. Do they? I mean, maybe they do, but they probably do.
I'm sure someone does.
But
yeah.
Madras is probably like the most common one that you would think of for like a plaid, or a poplin. You know. So yeah, I have those ones. And yeah, I haven't really bought any like big maker. I know that there's a lot of other ones out there, like 100 Hands is a bespoke one.
hmm
Ascot Chang makes a couple variations for bracelets that you get from them, or from Ascot Chang, no, from the Armory.
And now, I mean, there's all the really Ivy places,
The revival ones, like
yeah,
Jake's.
Jake's, or even the old school ones like Mercer and Sons,
Yeah,
O'Connell's,
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. You know, and then I think J Press is like reviving their, or maybe they've never, maybe
hmm
I'm saying reviving, but maybe they've never been gone. But like the button flap, pocket
Yeah.
Oxfords, and so they're always around. So I never feel the need to make it, you know. And again, I'll get into it after this. But I'm picky about it, but because I don't want to spend the money on it, and it's one of those things where it involves a lot more about my style.
Yeah.
But we'll get into it. So how do you wear your Oxford cloth and your button-down collars? How do you do it?
I mean, you don't like wearing yours without ties, and I don't. Well, I don't wear ties much anymore. Period. But I have always worn mine just as shirts. And we've talked about before. They always kind of have like academic vibes. I'm a journalism student. Most journalists that I've worked with, like the OCBD is kind of like a uniform, like OCBD and
Yeah.
slacks. So I kind of like doing that, but the cooler version or the like mid-century version. Um, so yeah, I mean, I wear them how I wear like any other shirt. Um, and yeah, I tip. Yeah, that's how I do it. When I want something to be a little bit less rugged, I will opt for an OCBD instead
Well,
of like a
because
chambray shirt.
okay, yeah, I was gonna say what are the alternatives for your style? You know, like when you're making it,
hmm
like what do you think of? Like, you're gonna make this dressier, but you don't really have to, or maybe not dressier. I don't know, but like you don't have to. Like, the idea of wearing a spear point collar instead doesn't cross your mind as much anymore.
I mean, it does because it's like I still, I have all my spear points that I like, quote unquote, like rediscovered, like started wearing again.
Hmm.
But they are just different vibes. Like the spear point always seems more old school, and that's because it is. It's a specifically 1930s style.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, yeah, I could wear them interchangeably. It's sometimes just a case of like I try one on and I'm like, oh, this looks good.
Yeah. Well, see, okay, so the way I know you wear it with, like, yeah, you do it with like slacks, you do it with trousers. You know, I think most
hmm
menswear events lately, you have been wearing that more than the spear point collar, because you have
Yeah.
like the Drake's ones, you right? You have Drake's.
Yeah, I have a chambray shirt from Drake's, which is great, and then I have a kind of like wine Oxford, which I really like. I really like that color. Unfortunately, I haven't worn it enough, so it's not like all broken and then soft.
Hmm.
But I think it's a really cool color and one that you don't see as much.
Yeah. I
The
think
kind of
it's
like dusty wine red, yeah.
yeah. I put a picture. It's you wearing it with like a navy blazer and like a paisley tie. I
hmm
think that's really really cool. Um, but yeah, I don't own any Drake's ones. I think it's just expensive. I don't need
Yeah.
one. I mean, and Spencer got them on sale. Um, that's kind of how. And the reason why, so I get mine, a lot of mine are Brooks, is because occasionally I just look up Brooks 15.5 cotton, and then I just like see what's on there. Um, and unfortunately, a lot of like the OCBDs are like the Madison fits or like the slim fits, and the ones that aren't are usually older and they're poplin. Maybe because people
hmm
buy up the Oxford, the classic Oxford ones all the time, and so yeah, I a couple of my stuff is are poplin. But the way I wear it, I do wear it interchangeably with spear point collars, but the difference, like Spencer said, is because I wear it with a tie. And so it's a little bit of like,
hmm
okay, how do I want to frame my tie today? Is it going to be with a collar bar, the spear point collar, or is it going to be with the OCBD? Because they both, to me, and I say this in the article, the reason why I don't like say Oxford collar button down is because it's just like, and I don't think about like the classic stuff. Like, oh, does it have like the gussets or whatever? No, it's all the collar. That's what you see, and that's what you see frames a tie, and what makes it Ivy. Like a spear point collar to a regular person, a regular menswear guy won't trigger as Ivy, even though it could be 30s Ivy. What makes it Ivy just off the bat, if you just look at a guy's torso, it's the fucking button-down collar with the tie. And so that's kind of my basis for it. I think about, okay, how do I want to wear this? Usually, obviously, I like to wear my OCBDs or button-down collars with like rep ties, or geometrics, but not as crazy as like the 30s, because I feel like that's a little bit too anachronistic or kind of weird for doing that. But yeah, most of my stuff is worn with tailoring. I when I wear it just by itself, I feel like I am like a Michael Bluth, like really like unbuttoned shirt, maybe a visible undershirt kind of peeking out with like khakis. I'm like, I don't know what that is. I don't like that. Even if I like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do it with like jeans and loafers, it still feels too dad to me. Maybe it's because I'm like shorter and my shirts are really like for 15.5-inch neck, like the shirt's like 44 inches. It's huge, and that look doesn't look as good. I do love the maybe I wrote a thing later on in the notes or our outline. It's like iconic OCBDs, and it's like the North by Northwest finale outfit where it's like a really baggy OCBD with like really high-waisted trousers. I love that look.
Supposed to contrast how like slick he looks in the beginning with his very like Madison Avenue gray
and like
suit.
this like thing that the CIA guy just gives him, because like, here, we got some clothes for you. I do like that, but it's one of those things where like, I start putting on this like my side tab pleated trousers, OCBD, and I'm like, you know what, I want to wear a sport coat, I want to wear a tie with this, and it doesn't start out that way. I mean, there are times I hung out with Spencer where I take off my sport coat and a tie and I do that look, but it's not the look I had intentionally went for,
Yeah, it's circumstantial.
Exactly, which is true Spencer, or true slouch, if you want to call it that. And there was a time when I did wear it with milsurp a lot. Like, when I first got my jungle jacket, I did do like, knitwear, jeans, OCBD, and then like the jungle jacket with like a bucket hat. I don't do that as much now, because I've like I said, quarantine has made me like really want to get dressed up again. But yeah, I did do that kind of like Ivy dad, rugged Ivy look. It's just not something that really lasted in my personal style. I do love wearing it with shorts, so that is one of the few times I do wear it without a tie. Yeah, like the kind and untucked with like short shorts with like socks and loafers.
Our Instagram Oxford cloth button down, the person, not the shirt.
Yeah,
he does this look a lot, and it's really great.
Yeah, he also uses like OCBDs like overshirts over other OCBDs, and it's very prep Steve Bannon kind of a stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, you see, I think one reason why maybe I'm like slowly getting back into it, and why Spencer probably has a lot of inspiration, is because a lot of our friends and mutuals on there, they do think about it as an everyday shirt. They wear it with like cut off fatigue shorts. They wear it with, you see like Dick Carroll wearing it with like a 3-piece CAD suit, a CAD suit. You see like Mark Cho wearing it with like a bespoke Livorano suit. There's a lot of different stuff that kind of play into it, and how it really is. I mean, even in our Discord, guys wear it a variety of different ways. Like Shane wears his untucked with shorts, really cool. It really is like, it's the menswear. I mean, it's not just the menswear version. Like, mall guys wear it, and menswear guys wear it with everything.
Guys love wearing the Oxford shirt. It's a winning shirt. I mean, you know what? It's like, what else could you want from a shirt? It's like comfortable, and it has a pocket. That's basically all you need.
Yeah, I mean, not the original ones.
Not the original ones, but they do now. It's funny, when I was more of a stickler and I wanted to do a 30s style OCBD, I'm like, I'm going to get it pullover. I'm not going to get a pocket. Now I'm like, no, give me the pocket. I might still do it pullover. I like baggy pullover shirts. I think they're cool.
I don't know.
I definitely want a pocket.
I think I have like a prominent like chesty kind of a thing because I work out so much. But I think popovers, I just need like, it's just too restricted. Like, I mean, it's fine. I have 30s pullover work shirts that I wear, but I don't know. I like the being able to like unbutton and kind of have it be like loose around my chest and everything. But yeah, I think what's cool about having everyone be into it is that it's made a couple of variations, like mentioned, like Mercer and Sons or Drake's or whatever. But when you really look at it, like the real test is like what kind of cotton they use for it, because
Mm-hmm.
I think now with like technology, you can have a really fine Oxford cotton, and those like contribute to kind of the more satiny, shiny, more elegant ones that you see like Anglo-Italian style,
Yeah.
or like the armory ones that they wear. Contrast that with like the vintage Brooks Brothers, that you can see the visual heft, the wrinkles in like in a more vintage style one, like Jake's or whatever. There's a lot that goes into it, and that's kind of at this point, because maybe the spread collar is going out of fashion, or the point collar, like where people are dressing up less. They still want to wear a tie, but Oxford, like we said, allows you to
Yeah.
look good. It look quote formal without being formal. Um, and so
I mean,
obviously,
it makes sense as like I don't want to say it's been gaining popularity right now because that seems silly. It's been popular for so long,
yeah,
but it is a good shirt for like 2021 because as we kind of talked about in the bonus episode or when looking at some of the lookbooks, the direction that a lot of places seem to be going now is like, okay, it's still like menswear, but it's comfortable enough that you could wear it at home by yourself and it's not weird.
yeah.
And the OCBD is a very, very good shirt for that.
Yeah, exactly. And so, when it comes to that, it's like, which one do you want? The cloth, again, plays a big deal into it. But the collar, let's talk about that, because
Yeah.
um,
At the most important part.
the most important part is what makes it the fucking button-down collar shirt. Because
Hmm.
like I mentioned this before, when you take off the buttons, is in certain vintage ones, or like even like Drake's ones, they look like spear points. They look like point collars, or like a very subtle curved point collar. Um, just with buttons, and I
Yeah.
remember it the first time. I think Bruce Boyer wrote about it. I don't know where it was. It was just like 2014, 2013. It was like, oh, Drake starts doing the buttonless button down collar shirt, and that was before they started, like, and you could see it. I don't think it was like in any marketing, because I saw it when I went to London in like 2018 or 2017. um
Hmm.
but then it became like, oh, long point collar, and now I think there's a little
Yeah.
too much spread in it. That's a little bit different now than before. But yeah, yeah, yeah. So you have to look at it. The collar is super important. It's one of those things that I found, like, yeah, you gotta see it with a tie, you gotta see it on a person, you gotta see it unbuttoned, you gotta see it on the packaging, because you can't really tell, right? You gotta like put it on, to kind of figure it out, because like when you have it unbuttoned and opened, they all kind of look the same. They all kind of like,
Yeah.
they're all gonna roll probably, because if it's not like the J. Crew Secret Wash shirt with like an inch and a half collar, like if it's anything at like 3 inches to 4 inches, it's gonna roll, because that's still a lot of collar. But it's when you button it, that's when you see, okay, how far are the buttons across? If they're
Hmm.
a lot of menswear guys today, or maybe brands, have it really spread out, and it makes like this kind of really exaggerated, really wide bell shape, or like
Yeah.
S, like a
I
very
think
angled S kind of curve.
I mean, they're like, yeah, trying to get that like very distinct shape, but then I also think it's like, okay, well, we want to, and we've talked about why we like this with spear points. We want to like kind of meet like the edges of the jacket, so they put the buttons right where the edges of the jacket should be, or the edges of the lapel.
It's fucking weird, because that makes the collar spread out, but like with spear points, it goes
It's
inward,
because
and
yeah, exactly, because the thing is spear points, they're just like longer, and so they don't have to be as spread out as far.
yeah, they'll meet the lapel lower on the thing, right, as opposed to the
Uh-huh.
OCBD. Yeah, that's a great point. And I think Henrik H. Wilberg put this in our Discord, where like, and I was kind of coming to it as a conclusion, but yeah, as guys start buying, or getting from like, oh yeah, spread collar shirts. Oh no, I don't want to do spread because it's too fancy. You just take that idea of the spread collar shirt and you do it OCBD style. Because man, I tell you, the Anglo-Italian shirt is just so spread. It is almost comical about how wide it is. And I do think it depends. I mean, it really shows in the tie choice that you have, because again, modern ties, even if they're not 70s wide, the knot that they have because of the inner lining is going to be a lot wider than any vintage
Yeah.
tie that Spencer and I have. And I guess it's true. I mean, I'm sure the makers know that too, which is why there's a little bit, the spread
There's
is there.
more tie space. It lets the tie fill it out a little bit more.
Yeah,
Or it doesn't
but-
constrict the tie.
But
And that's always what bugged me really quick. That's what bugged me so much about like when I would see mannequins with ties at J. Crew, is because those ties are so fucking tiny and all our those collars are so tiny and all our ties are so thick. Like, and the people who designed the mannequin would always give them like half Windsors or whatever. It just was like fucking eating up that collar. I'm like, no one can think this looks good. Like, no one thinks this looks good.
What I
right?
don't like is when like the tie knot gets too close to like the button part, like the lengthwise. It's very subtle, and again, it depends on how much. Because if you tie your tie closer to the shorter blade, of course knot's gonna be smaller because that's the less thick part of the tie, and then you just tuck in the rest. But not every menswear guy does that. So the result is the tie starts to get too, like the knot area where the triangle meets the body of the tie. It starts to get too close to the button, and that just looks off to me. Like when you look at like the classic images, like there is still like the knotting point is still a ways above the collar points, and that is something so important to me. And why if I go to Drake's or whatever, I have to bring like a vintage tie or my made to order tie with me because I need to make sure, because I know Spencer does it and I think it's fine, but like on me I need to see it, and I don't have. I've unfortunately the bloke always sold out of my size in 15 and a half, so I could never see to make sure that the tie knot was at the right area, and that's why, again, looking at Anglo-Italian, of course, they needed to be spread out and wide, but then it's because the tie knots are just that much bigger. And you do see like guys like Dick Carroll wearing vintage Brooks that illustrate for me what the right amount of like collar space and length, everything that kind of goes all together. Because I think at the end of the day, I actually don't want like something super spread. I don't need it to be super bell shaped either. I want like a very subtle curve. And even now, some of my OCBDs don't curve that much, or they don't roll that much. It also changes like based on the tie I'm wearing, or maybe how when I button it down, how like my fingers roll on it. I think there's
I was gonna say, you can just like some collars you can just press on them and they like adopt a completely different shape.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really a fun shirt, like if you think of it that way, right? Like there's a lot of like customizability with it. And speaking
of fun shirts, do we want to start getting into the different patterns
and cloth? Yeah, let's. We did talk about the cloth already, but I mean, like we said really quickly, because the collar is what's so iconic. They just put this shirt on. They put the collar on everything, right?
Yeah.
That's why it works for like. I mean, the Drakes made the chambray one so popular. But you see it like, wool shirts. I mean, Anglo-Italian has like flannel shirts, You see it on polo shirts. I didn't really talk about that in the essay because I don't really
like Spear and McKay. Spear and McKay makes a polo shirt with a button-down collar that has a really nice roll. I don't know if they still make it because I remember first seeing it in like 2017 or 2018.
Right.
And it was only like $40. Maybe I should have picked one up, but
I think it's
at the time
spread.
I was really impressed.
Yeah, I mean, I know that.
I mean, that's one that you're not going to be wearing with a tie.
Well, you've lost me. So, I mean, one thing I have for me, it's got. It's not that I don't wear mine without ties. It's more that I have to have the option of doing both because, like I said, it's incidental when I just. Take
Would you wear a tie with the polo shirt, the button-down polo shirt?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
I mean, there you go. This is off topic, but I did. There was one time where for one of my church stuff, I had to wear like the camp counselor polo, and I was like in super into hashtag menswear at the time. I'm like, I'm gonna wear this with a suit, and so everyone is there wearing like this PK with like the branded like camp or whatever, like on the chest, and there's me wearing it like underneath the suit with like some fucking shitty ass tie, because I want to be cool and contrarian. But yeah, there's a lot of different fabrics on it. I think, again, it just depends on what you like, because that's when pattern comes into it. Like we said earlier, I think Madras or plaid button-down collar shirts are really cool, and you typically see them in Madras. You also see them in poplin, which is what I have. I have like a really cool like dark blue check one that I've worn a couple times. I have like I just got a couple weeks ago a like red and yellow plaid one that I really like, and that's in poplin.
Oh wait, of course. I have 3 Drake's shirts. I have the chambray one, I have the red wine, the dusty wine Oxford, and then I do have one of their Madras, which is like a blue and yellow.
That's a good one.
Madras, yeah. I really like their like more like bright ones, like the yellow or orange bases that they make.
Yeah.
Spear and McKay they make some good ones. I might pick up one of their mattresses this summer.
Gift of the
Mad Dry.
Gift of the Mad Dry.
Gift of the Mad Dry.
One thing I've noticed about OCBDs is that I all of mine have different patterns in my spear points. So that's what also kind of applies to how I wear it. Because again, like I said, my university stripes are often in OCBDs. I have it in blue, I have it in red. I used to have like a purple one. And then like I have like in those checks. I have it like in a lot of like my dark base. I have a really great 60s green OCBD that I got in New York. Really great. I do wear that one without a tie because it's kind of a fun like artist, baggy shirt. It's really wrinkly. But yeah, I think there's something about the button-down collar that kind of equalizes it, which is why it's fun to see it in like the paisleys. You see it in the batiks. You see it in like the Ren Spooner does it in like the reverse aloha print, where like the faded parts on the outside and not you also see it in the fun stripes, like whether it's like the poplin, Bengal stripes that are like different pieces on the body. You see it in like fun ginghams, fun
solids.
Fun, yeah, you see that.
I have the striped one, and I really like the striped one. I don't think I would get a solid one, just because I don't really like the colors that you typically see on the solid ones. I'm not as much into the pastels.
Yeah.
But the one that I have is like the really like vibrant like Bengal stripes, which I like.
Yeah. And that's one I think like Wooden Sleepers finds a couple of every once in a while, and it sells out. But yeah, I mean, solids are also really good here. I prefer a solid in an OCBD than I would in like a spear point collar, other than like white or blue. But like, I think
especially if you get into really nice Oxford, because I mean, that the texture is going to speak for itself.
Yeah, I think obviously, like we said, like I have no issues with poplin or madras, but I think obviously Oxford is like the ultimate shirt. I mean, I have it, like I wrote in the article, I have it in my spear point collars because I just love the fabric so much because of how it breaks in. And I don't think anyone's ever going to be like, oh, you're wearing the casual fabric and not broadcloth. You should go home and change, But I think that aspect of like the wrinkliness, the heft that you get, the age that it has, lends itself to be used like, if you want to get like in a dark blue, which I think do you have it in a dark blue from Kamakura, right?
Yeah, I have a Kamakura one in navy with white buttons, which is another great casual shirt.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, that's why it's good as like chambray. It looks good in pink, in like, again, like my dark green OCBD, and of course the really classic one, the yellow or ecru ones. I think those are really good for like 70s vibes. They kind of equalize out a suit a little bit. They're not as intense as white, but they're not like soft like blue. They're just a yellow.
It's a very friendly shirt.
Friendly. I'm a friendly shirt.
Yeah, camp friendly pines.
Camp. These pines are camp friendly.
These pines are camp friendly.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like we said, if we think about the brands we get it right, I don't have a lot of experience with it. I just buy vintage Brooks, or I try and find Makers. I think Makers is like the good point where it's really nice. On that note, I do have an end-on-end one that I think was my first ever button-down collar blue stripe. That wasn't the Natty shirt. I didn't get one from Natty Shirts, but like button-down collar blue stripe. But it's like a Dobby stripe. It's like one of those like really thick, like white, like multi-stripe kind of a things. I love that as like a spring-summer shirt. I've worn that a lot with like knit ties because it's a little too wild to wear with geometrics and everything. But I think that's kind of a fun one. End on end, I think is like, so if you don't want to do poplin and you think Oxford's a little too casual, I think end on end is pretty good. And then of course
it still gets you that kind of like end on end and chambray still kind of give you like an interesting texture, something that's not so flat, but obviously it's not going to be as textured or as quote unquote scratchy as an Oxford.
Yeah, I think the formality for me it goes, and we'll get into this now, but like poplin number one, then you go down to end on end, then you do Oxford, then you do chambray. I think that's kind of like, and that's kind of like that spectrum of where you want to end up at in terms of formality. Because again, as we talk about this, I have a hard time believing that old idea of the OCBD is a casual shirt. You can't wear that with a tie and with a suit is so outdated, especially when it's inaccurate. When you see like Brooks, articles and not articles, advertisements and illustrations and whatever of guys wearing even 3-piece suits with OCBDs and ties.
Yeah.
It's like it must be like a modern convention or something that these old guys do.
Well, it's funny because like I always heard that like at vintage events, like vintage guys would say it's like, oh, I hate OCBDs. I hate OCBDs with ties or whatever. Probably because they associate it with 60s, which I don't know if that's still the case. I feel like a lot of vintage people are maybe embracing the 60s by now. But back then, they all hated anything like post like 1955.
Yeah, it's also because I think maybe they thought that the collars are too small now. But I mean, like we said, what's his name? Fred Astaire would wear it, you know.
Yeah.
But honestly, I mean, this shirt's really great. I think we've included a lot of inspiration there. But what I think is really classic is like the plain suit, a white OCBD and like the black knit tie or something. I think that's so cool. Or even with a navy jacket and gray flannels as a version of that, that's really great. I have done it a couple of times. You know, I don't really repeat outfits, but that's one that I kind of do air on every once in a while. But yeah, that really does kind of go with everything. You know, I mean, obviously none of you guys have to get the spear point collar shirt. But what you guys can do is get the OCBD and the button-down collar.
And the OCBD is like so much easier to get because the spear point, you know, to get a true spear point that we've talked about that we really like, you either have to get vintage or you have to get like made to measure, custom made, because like no one is really just making that style.
Yeah.
The OCBD, as we've said, there's like so many variations. And we've said what we like, but I think we both like variety in menswear, I think, even if it's not what we would personally wear. If you do like the Anglo-Italian super spread Oxford, then yeah, go ahead. I'm glad that there are people making different styles.
See, what I don't like is
one style of shirt.
You can't wear the Anglo-Italian one with a bow tie. Spread collar shirts with bow ties look shitty as hell. And I know that this means nothing to anybody, but I still wear bow ties like once a month, and I think they're fun. And it doesn't work. I mean, maybe that's why they don't want you to wear it with a bow tie.
I will say though, not a fan of short button-down collars. If I had to get rid of one style of button-down collar, the really short mall brand one might be it.
Yeah, I mean, hey, even the 30s ones, dude, get the fuck out of here. I was at Western Gifts, by our friend Garrett Miller, really great vintage store. If you guys are in LA, go check it out. But he had a safari style shirt from like the 30s or 40s, popover style with epaulets, short button-down collar.
Ooh, that's interesting.
The weird thing though is that obviously the previous owner had replaced the buttons. The buttons were fucking huge. It was like probably like a 70s button or something, but it's so disgusting.
I mean, it's funny. Like, you know, we obviously talk a lot about the spear point and how that was popular in the 30s, but there was also a big trend for like short collars in the 30s. Like you see that a lot, like very short,
early
very
to mid 30s
collars.
Yeah. Yeah, you see that in the images and everything. But really quick before we close out here, let's talk about that pocket. Let's talk about the other details.
Oh, absolutely.
So obviously, the pocket is not the original because, as we said, there are pictures of people wearing it without pockets. You know, and people didn't really use breast pockets as much because it was a work fabric that was a work detail.
Well, then also like in the early 20th century, a lot of people were still wearing vests. So, you know, you would have your vest pocket or your coat pocket or something. You didn't necessarily need a shirt pocket.
Yeah, exactly. But the effect on Ivy that had for me is like, man, I love not just my breast pocket, but when it's a button flap pleated pocket. I think that is so good.
That's really cool. Flap button pockets on OCBDs I think are really cool. It's again one of those things that I'm always kind of conflicted with because I like flap pockets, but I also like having a pocket open where I can just stick stuff in there.
You can just have it.
I don't. The flap gets in the way sometimes,
okay.
You know, even if it's tucked in. But it's one of those things where I think if I were spending like real money on a shirt, or you know, if I were getting it made. That's tough. Actually, if I were getting it made, I'd probably do a flap pocket just because it's harder to get. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, the J-Press ones are there. But as you saw in some of my images, the J-Press collar kind of sucks. I don't know if it's just the way the guy tied his tie. It just looks so shitty, you know? Sorry, Jacob Press.
Sorry, Richard Press.
Richard, that's his name. There you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, I like the pocket. I think it's kind of a cool. I use it a little bit. I put like my phone in there a couple times. I used to bring pen. Well, when I would go out more, I would bring a pen and pad with me, in case I like had to jot something down, or take some pictures and try to write down something about it. Um, but yeah, I like that detail. I know Drake's has that, which is cool for them on certain shirts. My Spirit Point collars. I know this is not a OCBD, but I've translated that onto my Spirit Point collars because I like that detail. Um, there's also that detail of the back collar button, which is weird.
Oh yeah. I don't. I remember when we went to New York and we're talking to the Drake's guys, like they were all mentioned. It's like, yeah, I cut those off. Like I hate them. Which, like, if you're gonna be wearing them with a tie a lot, then yeah, like it makes sense. They are kind of annoying. So you either, you could either cut it off or just leave it unbuttoned if you don't want to bother it. I wear mine without ties enough that it doesn't really bother me as much. I guess sometimes if I'm wearing it with a tie, I'll just just not bother with it. Just not bother with the back button. I do like the locker loop, however. I don't know why. I never actually use it for anything. I just think it looks cool. I like the locker loop.
That's right. Yeah, the locker loop on the back of the back neck, right at the top of the box pleat in the back, which is what kind of gives it.
Box pleat is another nice detail. Yeah.
I haven't put that on my bespoke shirts, but I like it on an OCBD. But yeah, the locker loop is an interesting detail. I don't know if I actually need it, but the back collar button, I wear ties all the time. I can't stand that shit, dude. I never use it. Like I just always have it. I always have it undone. And I do have some 60s, 60s, 70s OCBDs, vintage ones, full Oxford that are not Brooks Brothers that I love. I think I finished off my essay with pictures of the best one, which is this like white and like very faint red multi-stripe, and those stripes are spaced out enough so it doesn't look like a red shirt. I love that shirt so much. I wear it all the time. It is so soft. It is. I don't want it to die. And speaking of that, I think Oxford cloth shirts are cool with some wear, not just with wrinkles, but when you do repairs on it, when you get the collar.
I need to repair my red one and my yellow one because both of those collars, they are frayed, and that's cool, but I also don't want to just lose fucking all the fabric on the collars.
Yeah.
So I haven't been wearing those as much because I need to go to a tailor or something.
Yeah, to flip the collar.
Get those. Well, either flip the collar or get them patched up, but I'd want to find someone who can make it look cool.
Well, that's one thing about the OCBD, right? Like, because it's the same on both ends, you don't have the collar stay slit, I guess, gash.
The gash.
But yeah, are able to kind of flip it and save it for a little bit longer. Of course you can patch it. I mean, I've had that red stripe that I just talked about. I got the elbows blew out. And I got it replaced with blue Oxford. I tried to find chambray at work, but of course, my previous job, we cut out fabric when things are sold out, and I picked some blue Oxford cloth and I put that on there, which is really cool, and it makes the shirt even cooler because it's like I'm making this last. It's like it's like a car that you keep adding stuff to because you don't want it to go away.
Mend and make do, or make do and mend, whatever the old adage is.
But yeah, I mean, I love this shirt. Obviously, I don't love it as much as my Spirit Point collar. I don't know if the Spirit Point collar was available in the way I wanted it. I don't know if it would be 50-50, It's just one of those things where when you wear it, it not only does it go with everything, but it looks old school. And I think a lot of other guys like that too. Like as we talk about the rise of archival fashion, and we're going to have a podcast episode on the future of menswear. I know that's coming out. We unfortunately lost the audio. I did appeal it to Twitch. Probably never going to hear anything back about it. But yeah, I think that, the popularity of it, obviously you're not going to see it like J. Crew in the beefy way, but when you see it like Rowing Blazers or Noah or whatever, I think that the love that this shirt has is kind of proof that the classics really don't go anywhere, and there's just that appeal where looking like mid-century that you can kind of pass off. You can wear it with anything. You can wear it with like fucking Dickies and like sneakers. You could wear it with like loafers and jeans. You can wear it with your bespoke suit. Doesn't matter if it's Liverano or Cade. There's so much variety in how this shirt is worn. Yeah. As opposed to like a regular spread collar, which is again fading out. it's just a really cool shirt, and you don't have to have it in Oxford. You can have it in whatever the fuck you want, you know.
Exactly. Have fun with it.
Yeah, and you could get the fun shirt made of multiple different fabrics.
Exactly. And we talked about like the levels of formality with all the different cloths or details, but again, rules are meant to be broken. Even if you have a denim or chambray OCBD and you want to wear it with a full suit, go ahead. Like, it's cool.
Yeah, exactly. Well, anyway, guys, thank you for listening to the podcast. We really appreciate you guys. If you guys want to read my personal thoughts that are not included in this 1 hour episode, you can go to alittlebitofrest.com where you can read my blog, and you can see my thoughts there, as well as the pictures of the stuff that Spencer and I talked about from all of the ones that we liked.
Yeah,
it's on there. And if you guys want to support us, what can you do?
Well, there's a couple things you can do. You can go to patreon.com/style and direction and become a patron. $5 gets you access to our Discord, where we love to hang out. There's a lot of good discussion. I haven't been on there this morning, but I'm sure if I open it up, there's a new message in all the channels, because that's how it is every day. It's very active. And as we talked about last night on stream, big bonus is the marketplace. We are just giving away clothes, folks.
That's right.
Maybe not giving them away, but selling. People are getting deals on clothes in our Discord.
That's right.
Almost all of us have gotten something from someone else. Like I got something from Kiyoshi where I just paid shipping. I know he's done that a couple times. A lot of other people are getting good deals, so it's worth it just for that. Of course, if you pay a little bit extra, $10, you get all that. Plus, we say your name, or Ethan says your name, unless you specify otherwise.
Yeah. So let me say thank you to our sad cast fanatics. Thank you to Audrey, Jessica, Austin Malat, Jeremy Ostreicher, Philip Gregard, and Shane Curry. Thank you for being our top tier patrons of our Patreon. And if you, again, like Spencer said, if you want to join us, you can give the $10. But say, hey, that's too expensive. I know what you can do. You can go to Apple Podcasts, give us 5 stars, follow us on it, and leave a review. Mm-hmm. That would really help us out. We're pumping these out for you guys. We're doing podcast stuff. We're doing streaming stuff. But yeah, if you want to support
every Wednesday and Saturday.
That's right.
In case you haven't joined in yet.
Yeah, and then youtube.com/downdirection if you want to see some of our special highlights. You can go to Twitch and see the whole thing if you want to, but the special stuff that we decide to keep is going to be going on our YouTube, as well as other episodes of the podcast. But yeah, we would really appreciate it if you guys supported us. And of course, if you're using a different platform, subscribe to us on all of those things. Follow the Instagram, Style and Direction, all spelled out. Big thank you to our
follow us on Instagram. I'm Spencer DSO.
I'm Ethan M. Wong, and big thank you to our producers who will never get on mic unless it's a bonus episode.
You gotta pay extra for that.
Yeah, or you hear the little preview that we include for you. Thank you to producers MJ and Matt for helping us make this podcast happen.
Big help. We love you guys.
We love you, and we love
kiss you.
We love the rest of you too. We'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.